Gentlemen. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning to you and welcome to this, our second panel discussion of the day. We have a great topic to debate, and we're talking about accelerating diversification, specifically looking at free zones. Commodity exporters in both Latin America and the GCC have been looking to diversify away from natural resources. A very good way to do this and develop growth at the same time is to focus on free zones. Dubai has a great history of success with free economic zones making up 75% of Dubai's exports and contributing 25% to GDP. So what lessons can we learn from Latin America, which also has its own successful free zones, and what lessons and knowledge can we impart to them? Well, here to help us find out, a very esteemed panel of guests. Welcome, gentlemen. To my left, I have His Excellency Hamad Buamim. He is the President and CEO of the Dubai Chamber of Commerce and Industry. I also have Nasser Al-Madani. He is a board member of World Free Zones Organization and Assistant DG of Dubai Airport Free Zone. And last but by no means least, we have Paul Griffiths. He is the CEO of Dubai Airports. Please welcome them. Gentlemen, very warm welcome. Good morning to you. Lots to discuss today, but let's start by defining terms. Let's have some context. The first free zone was established in Shannon Airport in Ireland in 1959. Today, there are 3,000 to 4,000 free zones worldwide and some 23 in Dubai. So, Hamad, tell me, what's the secret to Dubai's success so far? How did we arrive here?
Good morning, everyone. We are very glad to be here and to discuss this important topic, I would say. One important thing about the free zone from the perspective of Dubai is the ability that we were able to attract foreign investments and diversify the economy of Dubai. Going back in history, and our history maybe started in the mid-80s with our free zone. The reason it started because of the existence of the ports at that time, and this was one way to be able to get the ports even busier because it was 40 kilometers away from the city at the time where the whole center was, where most of the businesses are. And to be able to do more, I think Dubai realized that we need to start making new offerings. And what's different in the free zone at that time comparing to what the offering in the city was the ability to attract foreign investments with 100% ownership that the city or inshore companies doesn't offer. And I think that was the start of the great model that we had today. Of course, we were able to attract a lot of Fortune 500 companies. A lot of them were really viewing their existence in Dubai, not to serve Dubai or United Arab Emirates, but to serve the whole region. And this is where the whole hub or economic hub and trade hub Dubai, I would say, arrived to right now. It's because of the start that started in the mid of the 80s. So that was a new offering, I would say, had new options that wasn't available for companies inside the country, and was mainly to attract these companies that have an interest to serve the region. So since then, of course, the free zone at the airports was another one which served also to expand the trade. And I would say trade in Dubai today at a level of 350, 360 billion US dollars, which is 4 almost times the GDP of Dubai, much more than what we consume as a city. Almost 70% of whatever we import, it gets re-exported and distributed in the region, thanks to the free zone and the concept that started back then. Of course, the free zones evolved into service free zones, and that's where maybe start to compete with the local economy, but that has also good competition that we start to see in the 2000 onward. And I think the story to continue, because right now when Dubai position itself, for example, as a hub to attract tourists in the healthcare sector, one of the reasons for that is the healthcare free zone that we have in Dubai. And of course, the ability to attract talents, the ability to attract companies that I would say the system had restriction around. I think the free zone was able to add to the economy of Dubai.
Thank you. Nasser, talk to me about some of the most successful free zones. What are the jewels in the crown when it comes to Dubai's economic free zones?
Thank you, Rebecca. Good morning, everyone. First, well, as far as Dubai is concerned, I can say that all the free zones in Dubai are successful. But there are also many examples of very successful free zones around the world, everywhere, even in Latin America, in the US, in China, and the region, of course, the Middle East. So there are a lot of successful examples of free zones, and at the same time, there have also been many experiences that failed in the free zone industry. But generally, the free zone have been a successful industry. Dubai has proven that, and as we see in Dubai, the free zones are contributing quite a lot to the economy, to the GDP. As Hamad said, today about 25% of Dubai's GDP is generated through the free zones. So the Dubai model and the free zones in Dubai are very successful, I can say.
And just to touch on the services that free zones supply to companies, this is not just when they're initially starting up or coming to Dubai. This continues throughout their business operational life, correct? What are they?
That's correct. Actually, when companies come into the free zone, they look for removing a couple of headaches that they face in the mainland. Now, with the Dubai model, the main reason behind companies coming into the free zone is 100% foreign ownership. Now, on top of that, there are, of course, the custom duty waiver, the tax waiver, and other benefits. But if you see, that the main attraction for the free zones of Dubai for the foreign investors are the full ownership that they can get. In different parts of the world, there are different reasons. In US, for example, is mainly customs. In the Far East is mainly tax waivers. In Latin America, there are a number of reasons: customs, tax waivers, and also regulations, simplicity of regulations. So, yes, the services that are provided in the free zones will continue throughout the existing of that investment in the free zones.
Paul, let me come to you. We've touched upon GDP and the impact that free zones can have as a catalyst for growth. For something like Dubai Airports and the success there, how has Dubai Airport, its free zone, impacted that growth strategy? How has it propelled it forward?
Good morning, everyone. The impact, I think, of the integration of both communications and the free zones in Dubai has been an enormous boost to trade, has been an enormous boost in communications and infrastructure, because the integration drives several things. I mean, first of all, for Dubai to be such a hub, you need a network, and the network of communication of both freight, transportation, commerce, etc., is fed by the integration between what facilities are available on the ground compared to what can be connected through an air transport network. And the fact that we have more than 260 different destinations served worldwide from Dubai is really credit to the fact that Dubai is hugely competitive in international trade because of the quality of its infrastructure and the integration. I mean, for example, we are, I think, lead the world in several respects, and two aspects of this which I think are particularly important are the fact that the close integration between the free zones and air transport is incredibly close. I mean, the free zones in Jebel Ali and the free zone at Dubai International are both connected directly to the airside operation. So it's possible for goods to arrive from one destination, pass through the free zone, and then go on to another destination without any additional tariff being attached to that freight movement, which doesn't apply in other countries. The second thing is we've also led the world in creating modern technology to make the bonding of goods between two airports possible. For example, goods and services will arrive in the Jebel Ali free zone and can pass into the airport in a bonded situation into a warehouse. And then what can happen is they can be transshipped between the two airports using a modern electronic tagging system, which allows the goods to remain in transit from the time they enter Dubai to the time they leave. So that close cooperation and integration has driven demand for services, which has allowed us to build a network which literally covers the entire planet, including, obviously, significant direct services to South America.
And in terms of what's coming up, key milestones ahead for Dubai airports and how the free zone is facilitating that, what's on the horizon? What can we expect?
Well, I think in the future, the fact that we operate 3 airports which are notable in the top 20 of airports worldwide gives you a flavour of what we've achieved and what's still to come. We're number 1 for international passengers at Dubai International. We are number 3 for freight transportation at Dubai International. And we're also about number 17, number 18 at Dubai World Central, where we have something like 24 freight airlines operating there. So the idea of continued expansion of the airport infrastructure means that our freight and passenger traffic will continue to grow. By 2025, we expect to be able to open Dubai World Central Phase 2, which will have an initial capacity of 120 million passengers and something like 25 million tons of freight annually. That will be a big increase in capacity and will enable us to build substantial increases in traffic flows between air and sea through the ports and between air and road transportation within the region. So the vision of building up the free zones, building up the infrastructure, building up the road networks, the plans for a rail link between Dubai and Abu Dhabi and other parts of the region will obviously also assist with the growth of that freight traffic. So I think the future is very bright, and the growth that we've sustained over the last few decades will continue into the future.
Thank you, Nasser.
To that, with regard to your question, it's not only that the free zones contributed to the growth of the airport, but
Sorry, Nasser, we're going to bring you a hand microphone. I tend to shout, so I hope that everybody can hear me, but
I hope
for the
it's
politely,
better now.
softly spoken, we'll bring a hand mic.
Yeah, I was saying that it's not only that the free zones contributed to the growth of the airport. The free zones, yes, truly, they might have created some additional traffic, both in passenger, mainly in cargo, but it's the airport that probably contributed more to the growth of the free zone. And vice versa, and I mean, similarly in Jebel Ali is a port that contributed to the growth of the free zone. A lot of investors would come to Jebel Ali or to Dubai Airport Free Zone because of the proximity to the port or to the airport. So that's a
Your
more
Excellency,
unusual.
So would you agree it's a symbiotic relationship? The companies contribute to the free zone contributes to the company's success.
I strongly support the point that Madani just mentioned. Actually, the airports and the port definitely grow these free zones. And this is why we start seeing, especially in the 90s and after 2000, some local companies moved to the free zones because of the facilities that whether the airports or the ports provided. The infrastructure, so it's beyond just the waiver of the tax, the waiver of taxes and customs, it's also the facilities these free zones start to offer. The infrastructure in terms of warehouses, there was also a time of offices availability that the city didn't have or didn't have enough of. So free zones is really the ones we have over here. It's beyond just being a tax haven. They are, I would say, cluster of the economy that's diversified Dubai, and we were able to achieve whatever we achieved till today. Because sometimes when you are inshore, there can be, I would say, more complication establishing a business or less availability of infrastructure. This also brings me back to the point Paul mentioned here when he talked about communication. I think one thing the free zones were successful in is really inventing at that point of time, and I'm talking about 20 to 30 years, the single window services. They were able to get all the government departments together, whether immigrations or fire department, or also some of the private sectors such as banks and the chambers, etc., to come together under a single window through these authorities of the free zones and offer their customers a service that nobody offered at that point of time. Right now, we start offering that maybe only the past 10, 15 years, but I would say the free zones were ahead of the time. So in addition to being a tax haven and a place where customs are not collected, it's also the infrastructures and the services that they offered. And no doubt that the ports and the airports were able to add a lot to the free zones.
I think also I want to add that is the connectivity that Dubai has created with the region and the rest of the world. Mm-hmm. So a lot of investors would prefer to come to Dubai because it's very easy to fly to almost every city around the world, and particularly in the region, and for the goods to come to the port in Jebel Ali because it's very swiftly and quickly would be shipped again and taken to the markets around it. So the connectivity is here very important and very, very critical in the success of the free zones here.
Speaking of connectivity, but of a different kind, smart technology is very much an area where Dubai and its free zones have been charging forward. Potentially something that other countries and other free zones could learn from us is providing services online, smart apps in our smart city. Would you agree, Nasser?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, going smart has been an initiative of Dubai government, and the free zones have followed that initiatives. And today, the free zones in Dubai, all of them actually have most of the services provided online or on smart apps on the mobile phones. That actually simplifies and makes it very easy for the investors to really request for services, whether they are in their home or in their car or outside the country. And that has made, the life much, much easier for the investor and for the customer.
Now, many countries around the world, not least Latin America, have implemented or rolled out their own free zone models. In other countries, it hasn't necessarily worked. There are challenges, there are risks, and there are rewards. What might be some of the key takeaways, the key lessons? Paul, could you say from the airport's perspective?
Well, I think the thing is, it's the single vision that I think is the biggest advantage. And many countries don't seem to be able to articulate a common vision for the economic growth and success. And I think we're very fortunate here that consistent from the 45th anniversary of the founding of the UAE, which is almost upon us, we've had one single vision communicated down the successive line from the rulers here that has been consistent, has been very powerful, and has been a complete statement which has unified everyone around the enterprise. I mean, when I arrived in October 2007, His Highness Sheikh Ahmed bin Saeed Al Maktoum, my chairman, sat down and I asked him, what would you like me to do? And he said just one thing. And that one thing was never constrain the growth of the aviation sector in Dubai. And I don't know how many CEOs of any companies around the world just have one single focus to aim towards. And I felt very energized by that. And there is a downside to having one KPI in that you either succeed or you fail. There's no half measure. And I think over time, we've been able to articulate and follow that vision throughout the company, throughout the sector. And when I meet with my colleagues, like my distinguished companions here today, we know without having to talk to each other exactly what the vision is. Its growth, its development, its quality, and its success. And we all have that unspoken language to which we are able to contribute. That, to me, is the single most powerful thing about Dubai that the world could learn from us.
Hamad, would you agree? We've heard the words vision, strategy discussed much in the panels so far. And of course, free zones, looking at the macro picture, feed straight into that for Dubai.
There is no doubt about that. Actually, also, I would like to add to what Paul just said, because also Sheikh Ahmed, his chairman, chair our Economic Development Committee. And I still remember also one thing he said, when we started that committee almost 10 years ago, that whenever we sit here, everybody needs to take their departments or organization hat down and wear one hat, which is the hat of Dubai. So we have to work together toward achieving the vision of Dubai. And I think this has been part of the success of the free zones and a lot of what's going on here in Dubai. And if I take you back to your question, how other free zones failed, I think free zones cannot work in isolation. And we've seen that. In fact, some of our free zones went into other countries with exact same people, technology, and system processes. And here they are extremely successful, but they failed because they were only part of ecosystem that didn't sync together. I think over here, we have an agreement, whether written or embedded, but we need to work together. We need to work together for, for Dubai, for the city of Dubai, and of course there is the country itself. And when we work together, like even if I give example of the chamber, and even this events here, if I attract businesses, they have one of two choices. They can, of course, have a joint venture with a local company, and a lot of our members can do that, or they can go to one of the 20+ free zones and establish over there. Part of my responsibility is to promote the city and attract businesses. But when they come over here, they have to make their choices. And I think the free zones offer them options, and of course ensure there is another options. And this is part of the success of Dubai and part of the success of the free zones in Dubai is the ability to work together. But we need also to keep something in mind. There are also sometimes some challenges. Sometimes we hear from companies in the onshore that they start facing competition from free zones. And this is a fact, especially, as I said, since 2000 when we started Dubai Internet City and Media City and the Healthcare City and all these services free zones, I think the business models start to change. But one thing that added is the fact that the services in the whole city elevated because of the competition. Also, when the free zone started, the focus was trade. But when we start looking in this model to elevate the whole economy of Dubai and diversify and looking into clusters, the model of service free zones was also necessary to bring things together. Add to the fact that the free zones companies started looking at the region, and the local companies 30 years ago were only servicing the local economy. But when the economy started growing, a lot of local businesses as well, as I said, some of them moved to the free zones because of the infrastructure. Some others start servicing the regions. They become regional or international, and that's why they start competing with companies in the free zone. But we believe that this competition was a plus to Dubai. We're able to attract a lot of talents. We're able to innovate more, and you see a lot of that because of the free zones.
Competition, is it always healthy, Nasser? I mean, you meet twice yearly with the heads of global free zones, and what is the primary concern for them? What is the biggest challenge? What's the topic that keeps rising to the top?
Well, I agree competition, but I mean, today in Dubai, the competition is not from Dubai itself. Dubai is now competing with the rest of the world. So a lot of investment that should flow in Dubai into the free zones could find its way into other countries. So the competition is from outside more than from inside. Now, globally, there are a lot of other issues with the free zones other than the competition. There are many free zones who really have a hard time to really sustain themselves, to succeed. Now, this all comes back to what Hamad said, that the free zones should be part of the society. Mm-hmm. The free zones cannot survive as an isolated island in itself. It depends on the region it works, it's operating in, the people there, the infrastructure, the market, the economy, the rules and regulations that's applicable there. So if these are not in line together, then that's a prescription for failure. Again, a lot of experiences we see that a lot of countries introduce a free zone to solve an economic problem. Now, it could be unemployment, could be other problems, but to tackle a nationwide, a chronic problem for just one or two free zones is very challenging. They mainly would not be able to solve the problem. While what Dubai did, that Paul mentioned with the vision, Dubai had the vision and had the goal and used the free zone concept to achieve that vision and goal. If you put up a free zone to solve a problem, you're focusing on a weakness, you're focusing to how to tackle that problem. But if you are setting up a free zone to achieve a goal, you're focusing on the strength that you have in that country. Dubai traditionally, historically, has been a very successful trading hub, a transit point for goods and even for people. So that's why the free zones in Dubai came in and strengthened that sector, the logistics sector. All the free zones in Dubai probably mainly are in the logistics. And that's because Dubai was strong in trading and logistics, and that made the free zone successful. Now, if Dubai had come, for example, with a free zone to set up heavy industries or manufacturing, heavy manufacturing, probably the story would have been different. So it's all to do with, what's the objective of setting up that free zone in the beginning.
This is particularly interesting and relevant to our conversation looking at Latin American countries, some of whom have experienced huge spikes in unemployment. So maybe by implementing free zones or adopting this model, it might be seen as a way to generate jobs, to deal with that problem. But you're saying, no, it shouldn't be finding a solution to a problem. It should be creating something entirely different.
Yeah, that's correct. Free zones do generate jobs, but not to the level to solve a country's unemployment problem. So, for example, if you have 10 million unemployed and you set up a free zone, by the time this free zone comes up and employs, say, 1 million people, your unemployment rate has gone up to probably 15 million. So it does help, but it does not solve the problem. So yes, it does help to generate jobs, I do agree, and it has generated jobs. Today, if you look around the world, there are about 60 million people work in the free zones around the world. In Dubai itself, about over 220,000 people work in the free zones. So it does create jobs, but generally, not as the only tool to solve an unemployment issue.
Paul, you're nodding and smiling at me. Talk to me about Dubai airports and the free zone there in terms of employment and job generation, how one feeds into the other.
Well, the interesting thing is it's the multiplier effect, which I think is so interesting. We have at Dubai airports a staff of about 3,600. And if you take the other employees directly employed within the aviation sector in Dubai, on site at Dubai airports, taking all of the employees, there are about 90,000 people employed within the airport perimeter. But if you then take the next sort of halo effect from that, you can establish, and we've had a report produced by Oxford Group that suggests that something like 250,000 people in Dubai are directly employed by the aviation sector or by industries that wouldn't exist without the aviation sector being in place. So the multiplying effect of having a thriving communications, tourism, transport, hospitality infrastructure is very significant. And the impact of that is that we contribute about a third of the GDP of Dubai, and that is growing both in absolute terms and in percentage terms. And we could see within 10 to 15 years, almost 50% of jobs in Dubai being dependent, either directly or indirectly, on the existence of a thriving transport, travel and tourism sector. So the multiplying effect is very strong. And if you look at the percentage growth that air travel journeys are projected to contribute to global GDP, it's very significant, particularly from the Far East, where something like 1.3 billion annual passenger journeys are likely to originate by 2030. So having an open skies policy, not having any obstructions to the growth and development of enterprise, commerce, tourism in Dubai, I think has been at the heart of encouraging a very thriving and growing body of employment throughout the city.
Thank you. Just to remind you that you can send questions to me directly from your digital application, and I will address them to my panel. Equally, if you have a question, you can raise your hand and go to one of the microphones on the floor. I'll be coming to the floor in about 10 minutes' time before we wrap up our session here today. In terms of Latin America, the reason why we're here discussing free zones, what are the potential avenues for partnerships, tie-ups, the lessons we can learn from each other? Where do we stand in this regard, Your Excellency?
I think both the Gulf region and Latin American countries were dependent a lot in commodities trading and have kind of vision to diversify their economy. And Dubai has a story where we were successful during the past 30, 40 years to diversify away from dependence in single commodity. And part of that success is the free zone story. And I think this is something we can learn from each other. Add to that the fact that we believe that if we connect both regions, the Gulf region and Latin American region, and of course, since we are in Dubai, I'll promote Dubai as a connecting hub for that, we can open more opportunities. And this is where I think the theme of this forum, Shifting Synergy, is important, because we definitely live in a changing world and we need to reinvent ourselves to be able to grow. I think over-depending in the old economies will just keep us where we are, especially the past 5 years, I would say the growth rate's been quite slow. There are lots of opportunities I believe the Latin American countries can offer. Yesterday we've been talking about a number of sectors, whether logistics sectors, aviation, food, and agriculture. So we believe that connecting both of us can definitely open some opportunities. Yesterday also, Jebel Ali Free Zone signed an agreement with Sao Paulo Investments to be able to achieve part of that. How can we maybe be in Sao Paulo, for example, and connect some of our businesses and also have a simple way to establish our businesses in kind of a small, maybe free zones type of way, and do the same here in Dubai, where maybe there can be a simple infrastructure that can ease the way of establishing businesses in Jebel Ali Free Zone. These, of course, examples between Dubai and Sao Paulo and two simple organizations. I think if we expand that, we can definitely find more opportunities for our businesses and for our cities to be able to grow our business ties.
Nasser, would you agree? Lots of opportunities there for key industries.
There are a lot of opportunities. I totally agree. Just in the free zone industry, I know a lot of our Latin American friends want to learn the Dubai experience in the free zone, but we would also like to learn a lot of experience from them. Latin America, in terms of free zones, have been in the industry much before Dubai, and they have a lot of successful examples. For example, in Mexico, the maquiladoras, they are the free zones that were set up, labor-intensive, to provide for the American market in the 60s and late 60s and 70s and well into the 80s. They were very popular. I want to say they contributed to 50% of Mexico's revenue. That set the stage of free zone industry growing in Latin America. Today, there are a lot of free zones in Latin America, probably over maybe nearly 200, I don't know the exact number. In the World Free Zone Organization, we have 46 Latin American free zones as members. The board of Free Zone, World Free Zone Association have 3 Latin Americans represented on the board. We have great examples of concepts, new concepts in free zones. We do see single company free zones in Latin America. We don't have it in Dubai yet, in the region. This is something we would like to learn. Colombia, for example, probably a year or a year and a half ago, introduced the offshore free zone, a free zone catering only for companies operating offshore. There are lots of examples in Latin America that we would like to learn. We know some Latin American countries, Panama has a beautiful colon free zone. Uruguay has Zone America, which is one of the best in services. And actually, this free zone is even investing into other free zones in other Latin American companies. We have a very strong connection with Latin America and the free zone industry. For the past 3 years, we've been attending their annual meetings, the ASFA, the Association of Zone Franc Americas. That's the association of all the free zones in Latin America. We've been attending at high level. The latest was last September in Costa Rica. So the connection that we have with the Latin American free zones are quite strong, and there are a lot of opportunities that we work together. And that's actually the main objective that the World Free Zone Organization was launched, to get the free zones together on one platform, to share their experience, and to create opportunities to work together.
Super. The future is bright. Do we have any questions from the floor? If so, please raise your hand. Yes, please go to the microphone. Thank you.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Hisham Bendida from HBC Partners. So I have a question about the Global Forum. We're talking about synergies, shifting synergies. So as we have a nice panel today, I wanted to ask, is there a way in the near future that we can see the Dubai models? Let's say Dinata is operating right now in Singapore. Is there a way that we can see that Dubai Airport, Jebel Ali Free Zone, DP World, Emirates, all together setting up a kind of Dubai free zone outside in Latin America? And if yes, which country today is more fitted for that? Thank you.
Wow, a Dubai megazone outside of Dubai. Who would like to take the question first?
I can just answer the free zone part of it. Never put a Dubai free zone in South America. It will fail.
Yeah.
The first advice we give to our friends is never copy and paste a free zone. The free zone model that works in Dubai may not work in another neighboring country, let alone in another region. So the Latin America has to probably learn from its own experience of free zones and set up that model of free zone. But I leave the rest of the question to my distinguished colleague.
I think there are opportunities, some driven by technology, some driven by, I think, a vision. Where air transport services have been established directly between Dubai and overseas locations, we've seen some massive multiplier effects. Let me give you an example in the north east of England. When Emirates started services to Newcastle, the trade between the northeast of England and Australia increased by 29% just through the existence of a direct flight between Newcastle and Dubai, and then onward transmission from there to various points in Australia. Now, Emirates currently serves destinations in Argentina and Brazil, and with other markets in Latin America, I think there are also opportunities to establish direct air services and take advantage of that multiplier effect, because direct air services to a hub like Dubai with 260 onward destinations give immense opportunities for communications and trade to be established, and the existence of the free zones both at the point of origin and the point of transshipment, would be a tremendous way of boosting that. The only issue at the moment is that the intercontinental air routes between Latin America and this part of the world are quite small at the moment. So to make them economically viable, the new range of aircraft that are now coming onto the market will facilitate that growth, because they are able to cover the very significant distances between the Middle East and Latin America with a small amount of capacity operating at a sustainable cost. So I think with new capacity and new generation aircraft, you'll see many more markets between the Middle East and Latin America opening up. And once those air services are established, which in my view is the initial step towards encouraging trade and getting economic growth between the regions mobilized, that is a really important first step. The slight issue we have in Dubai with that is that Dubai International, as most of you, and I think something like 98% of the audience here are customers of mine, so you will know this better than I do. We are fast running out of space, and the ability to have the capacity in the short term to facilitate those services is a challenge. But the development of Dubai World Central Phase 2 will give us the capacity to foster those aviation links between Latin America and the Middle East. And I think that is a very important first step towards encouraging the growth of trade between the two continents.
Thank you very much, and thank you for your questions. Please keep sending them to me. Paul, a follow-up for you in terms of regulation. Is there a restriction in offering services by free zone companies to mainland and vice versa, especially when it comes to consulting services, for example?
No, we're very fortunate here. When the airport was established in 1960, it was on the basis that provided any country in the world was able to offer reciprocal open access to its markets, then Dubai would freely welcome any airline to operate into Dubai International. And I'm pleased to say that that's been honoured, for the last 50 years plus. And we have a situation now where there is open market access to pretty much every country on the planet that will offer that open market access. Some countries are rather restrictive in their bilateral agreements, and from their perspective, they do not allow their markets to be open. Countries like India, Canada have fairly restrictive bilateral agreements, but that's not because of any restriction from the Dubai side. So as far as access to markets, the Dubai model, I think in every respect, not just in aviation, is a very open model. And the attitude seems to be we will find a way of making it happen rather than putting obstacles in anyone's path.
Absolutely. Do we have any more questions from the floor? If so, please raise your hand and we will come to you. Yes, sir, please.
Good morning. It's a follow-up question on my question which I've sent. Is there restrictions for consulting from free zone to the mainland? This was my question, actually. Or vice versa?
Right.
Yeah.
Can I take that question?
Please.
Various consulting, actually. It could be design consulting or management consulting and other consulting.
The basic rule of companies operating in the free zone is that they operate within the free zone or outside the UAE. So operating within the UAE, legally, you have to be under the laws of the UAE country. Now, this applies mainly to trading companies. Now, when it comes to, this is because in the past, free zones were only having goods custom bounded and issues like that. Now, the business has changed. Now, a lot of services has come in. A lot of online trading has come in. That is very difficult to control or to monitor, whether it operates from the free zone or from the main town. So the practice today, yes, there are companies who do consulting, and there are free zones who do license and allow services like consulting and other services to operate from the free zones.
Thank you very much. Do you have any more questions from the floor? There is, of course, one topic to debate, which is our new president-elect for the United States, taking office in January, President Trump. We've talked about changing times, shifting synergies. We've also talked about tapping into the American market. What does this mean for Dubai's free zones here? We're dollar-pegged, we're affected by the oil price. Will Trump's presidency have any effect on business, in a nutshell? Hamad.
Well, I think it's a bit too early to predict anything. We believe that the American system is well established, based on its institutions, and nothing major will change. However, based on maybe the indications that during the candidacy, President Trump mentioned being more protectionism, reviewing a lot of the trade deals that happened with China, Latin America. I think based on how this will be reviewed, many things will be decided at that point of time. I think the foundations are strong, and of course, U.S. for us is a major trading partner, and we believe that will continue to be the case going forwards. I think we had a lot of discussion yesterday from Latin American point of view. Certain countries such as Mexico, there is overdependence in the relationship with U.S. And we've been, in fact, maybe for the past more than 10 years, and I see the ambassador sitting over here, we've been discussing how can we open more opportunities for Mexican companies to be in Dubai, and that's where the whole consulates, their trade office was established, and a lot of things happened. Of course, this also brings me back to what Paul mentioned. What difference right now, I think, in terms of our region, Latin American region, that we can start to relook at is the availability of this direct connections. And of course, the more and more we'll be able to connect together, whether through aviation, which again, because of technology right now, it's possible, or through the ports and the shipping lines, that will also make it more feasible. We'll be able to trade more, travel more to each other, do more and more business together. I see it opportunity, frankly speaking. And I think this is where we believe that Dubai can offer bigger markets for companies from Latin America. And we have a strong also foundations with the Latin American people to build on.
Are there any challenges to that growth? Are there any hurdles that need to be taken out of the way to accelerate that growth cooperation?
I think there are challenges. The proximity is a major challenge. And this is where I think events like this, we can sit together, talk to each other, understand more about each other. The information is a key to be able to know what you can do together. And we can just take it from there. This is the way we see it.
Looking specifically at landlocked countries in Latin America, are there the same opportunities for them, the likes of Bolivia and Paraguay, as there are for the ones that are not landlocked?
We conducted a study with The Economist, and we just published it during this event, looking at the Gulf region and Latin American region, and what can be done together. We realize we are doing quite well importing foods, for example, but we realize that most of that's coming from one country, Brazil. But if it's come from Brazil, can we do more with other countries? And also we realize, for example, we import a lot of foods from Chile. But if we were successful in importing a lot of food, can we import something else? I think this is where we need to start looking into some details of what else can be done. It's two ways, because I think there are countries, as we said, and we've been doing that with a number of countries, that they never looked at the Middle East as an opportunity. We know a lot of them, for example, do business with places like India, but maybe they do it from their own country. what if we can do something together and work with centers like Dubai to be able to tap into new regions by offering some of their services, some of their products, and take it from there.
Sounds like a good plan. Any last remaining questions? Yes, please, sir. We'll bring a microphone to you. Please bear with us.
Yeah, I just made one comment yesterday, on the free zones. Sultan bin Sulayem have given a very successful formula, whereas there is a seamless relationship between port, free zone, and the airport. And this is what is happening now. I mean, it's with the Jebel Ali port, Jebel Ali free zone, and Al Maktoum International Airport. If you have this seamless relationship between the three identities, I think it's, in my opinion, is a very successful formula to be copied anywhere in Latin America. That is my comment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, please. Nasser.
I totally agree. I mean, that's a beautiful example, and an example like that can be applied anywhere in the world, and it will be successful. I totally agree with you. Thank you.
Paul, would you agree? Is this something that can be not copy and pasted, but certainly an inspiration for a similar model?
Well, I think the thing is that, a bit like the question about the Trump presidency, the model might look quite easy from the outside, but the hard bit is just about getting it to actually work. And I think provided you can win the hearts and minds of those making policy and those pursuing trade agreements, then actually the model can be successful. But it does require this unity of vision. And I think the difficulty is in some governments around the world, that unity of vision is slightly lacking. So the model can only be successful if the government policies will support it. And I think here in Dubai, as we've said already, we're very fortunate in having that single vision, and we understand that. So it's relatively easy to then put policies in place which are complementary to government strategy. So I think the first thing is that if policymakers and those in government in Latin America would want to come and look at the Dubai model in depth and see how their own governmental strategies could be adapted, facilitate the establishment of the free zone concept and the communications necessary to support it, then I'm sure we'd be very happy to provide the insight and expertise necessary to assist any other country in establishing a similarly successful integrated strategy.
And Hamad, could you see that happening too? Again, there is no copy-paste, and we have to have in place some degree of something similar in both countries, where there is the policies, you mentioned, the soft, the hard infrastructure, and also a degree of security, because these are the things we need in place to make it a success.
As we mentioned earlier, maybe copy and paste, it's not the exact word, but the whole system need to work together to make these zones or economic zones work seamlessly. There are countries already offering a lot of benefits inshore, such as the ownership, but the free zones succeeded in their country because of the infrastructure they put together, which doesn't exist if they are outside these economic zones. But I think what His Excellency Al-Ghareer was meaning, to connect really the port with the airports and the huge warehousing in between, that's a concept. That's a great concept, especially for a place like Dubai, where we do a huge distribution. Our model is very simple. We almost import from all over the world, and we redistribute to the region. And to be able to do it within seamlessly, without any hurdles that come from the customs or any others, definitely giving Dubai and companies in these free zones a main advantage. So if others will take the concept and be able to address it in that way, and having, of course, a market that they can distribute to, a market that's kind of under serviced, such as the Middle East and Africa that we have here in Dubai, I think that's what work is.
Superb. Time for one last question, if anybody else has one. Yes, please, sir, if you could go to the microphone.
Morning.
Yeah, I think it's on.
Morning.
Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3.
Testing.
If you speak loudly, I think it will pick up your voice.
Yes. Good morning. My name is Tamer Mansour. I am from the Arab-Brazilian Chamber of Commerce. Yesterday, we had a meeting with Dubai Export, and we were discussing one operation which involved the raw materials, actually, the halal raw materials from Brazil, and then it's stopped in Dubai to reindustrialize, to make it industry and send it to China. And that made me think, if there is any possibility to have a free zone for halal products only in Dubai, and then start from Dubai to the whole world, I think it could be a good communication and contact between the industries in South America, especially in Brazil, which they produce a lot of halal meat, and then Dubai, and from Dubai to the world. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Very interesting question. Nasser, please, what do you think?
Well, I don't know. I mean, the halal industry, of course, is a big industry, and Dubai supports it with the Islamic economy. Now, the goods, if I understood you right, it's that the goods, halal goods, coming into Dubai and then added value and then shipped to China. Is that correct? Yeah. Okay. It all depends. Whether those goods coming in Dubai and Dubai can add the value on that good. So the food is coming to Dubai. Dubai is producing it in a halal way and then shipping it to China. Yeah, I mean, China is a big market for halal food, then yes, it can work. The free zones can provide the infrastructure for that.
Thank you. Your question is well timed, and our next panel discussion, if you remain seated, is on exactly that, food and halal opportunities. We have time for maybe one more question from the floor. If not, then I will come to my esteemed panelists for their key takeaways from our discussion here today. Paul, we'll come to you first.
Well, I think the thing is that the idea of getting a forum together to discuss with areas of the world that don't normally come together is a really, really good thing to do. I definitely think that policy precedes action, and I would just encourage those conversations to continue. I think it's a very worthwhile forum. I mean, I've been to South America a couple of times. I think it's one of the most underrated destinations for tourism in the world, and I think the promotion of the whole of the continent of South and Latin America as a destination for tourism could be a major opportunity in the region and beyond. I love the place and plan to go back there again very soon.
Thank you. Nasser.
Yeah, I know that there is a challenge of the distance between South America and this part of the world and the rest of the part. But if we can overcome that challenge, if we can increase the channel of connectivity, communication between the South American cities, countries, and this region, and Dubai as, as a middle point where then these can go further to other parts of the world, then I think that's the area we should work more on in strengthening the relationship and the connectivity between the two regions.
Thank you. Your Excellency.
Yes, I believe Dubai model is a successful model. It worked quite well for us for the past many years. Though we said it's not to be copied and pasted to assure to be successful. However, I think we can definitely work together to allow us to expand our knowledge and also gain some expertise from the countries in Latin America and works together to even identify other markets that can be of a great win-win situation for both sides.
Thank you. And there we must leave our panel discussion. Please join me in thanking my guests for their contribution this morning. Just a note to ask you to kindly remain seated for our next panel discussion on food and halal opportunities. Lunch will be served after that, and then please reconvene here at 2 p.m. to hear from former President of Mexico, Fox. He will be speaking on this stage, so we look forward to hearing from him. Thank you again.